Hello, thank you for joining us for this webinar today. We're excited to have Mark Settle give the presentation. So a little bit about Mark Settle. He's the Director of Technical Services at HotDocs. So Mark and his client-facing team, they provide technical solutions for customers of all sizes in legal, banking, insurance, corporate, and other industries. And Mark and his team, they provide pre-sales support, demos, training, project management, template development, integrations, development services for all of our clients and customers throughout the world. And Mark has a bachelor's in computer science from BYU and has been with HotDocs for more than 18 years. And so with that introduction, I'll turn the time over to Mark. And then at the end, we'll have a few minutes to answer some of your questions. So Mark, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you now, and we'll take it from here.
All right, thank you very much, Marvin. I'm excited to be here today and give you a brief overview of a top 5 insurance provider who utilizes HotDocs for their document assembly needs. So today we're going to be looking at a very specific use case, but before we do that, we're going to give you some background information and about HotDocs and who we are, and then give you information about this specific client and how they use HotDocs. All right, so first, who are we? HotDocs is the global leader in document assembly. We are the market leader in what we do. We really invented this technology more than 20 years ago. We have offices around the world, and we have over 1 million users worldwide with over 7,000 clients. We have a large network of partners, and we're deployed in over 60 countries worldwide. So we definitely are the best at what we do, and even as a company that's been around for quite a long time, we're still a fast-growing technology, and we've won quite a few awards both in the legal industry as well as things like the Gartner Co-Vendor Award. So we're very excited about that. So what is document assembly? Document assembly is a process that allows you to take documents that you use in your daily business, so a document that you have like a Word document or a PDF document, and then turn that into a template with HotDocs software. And that template can have markup to create variable fields where data may need to be merged, as well as conditional logic, so to conditionally include specific paragraphs or ask additional questions. So you can build those business rules and logic into that template along with those fields. That template can then be used to drive an interview process or a question and answering session. And so a user, when they want to generate a document, they're simply going through a Q&A. So that Q&A will ask them the questions they need to be able to complete and generate output documents. And so they can input answers. Answers also could come from other sources, maybe pulled from another system. And then those answers that the user provides in the template are then used to generate an output document or output documents, as it may be. So there may be one or more output documents from that interview process. So where is HotDocs used? HotDocs really started in the legal industry well over 20 years ago. But as you can imagine, a technology like this that allows you to take documents that you use every day in your business and create them efficiently has application across various industries. And so we started in the legal industry, but we've done a lot of work in insurance, in banking, and government, publishing, as well as legal. As you can see, some of our clients, we're at 4 of the top U.S. banks, over 60% of the top insurance companies, and over half of the top 200 firms in the U.S., as well as other organizations. And some of the solutions you would commonly see HotDocs used with, and this is just an example, it would be things like estate planning or incorporation processing, commercial lending, claims processing, and other types of implementations. So what are some of the benefits of HotDocs? I thought I'd mention that first. First, simplified data entry, right? So it's very common we see users are taking an old document and making a copy of it, or maybe have kind of a base document template, and they've got to come in and tab through or navigate through the document, make changes, maybe copy and paste method. And that really is time consuming and error prone. And so this simplifies the data entry. They're just in that interview process and answering the questions. It also allows for quite a bit of risk mitigation, because now you're controlling that data input and you have a template that has business rules and logic in it. And so you're eliminating the risk of having a wrong clause or wrong language coming in and out of a document because you're controlling that with a template, and the user is simply providing answers to the questions that are necessary. And then based on their answers, that document is generated properly. That allows for a lot of efficiency. So as well as simplifying the data entry. It improves your processes. It allows you to save time and money. And then also allows for standardization. So we find at a lot of businesses, they may not have very good standardization. So they're taking copies of old documents or maybe even creating some of their own documents as kind of one-off. So you can have more control over that process within your business to standardize that document creation process so that users are always using the same type of documentation, generating a proper output that will allow for that risk mitigation and for efficiency. So we're going to look at a very specific use case today, a specific business and how they use HotDocs within their business. And they really focus in one particular area. But I thought before I do that, I'd mention some examples, and this wouldn't cover everything, but some examples of where HotDocs could be applicable in the insurance industry. And I bring these up because there are businesses throughout the world already using HotDocs in these different areas. So first, litigation documentation and claims processing can kind of go together a little bit. But litigation documentation, so insurance companies have large legal departments that are working with litigation on specific cases that deal with claims. And so that's a very big use, and that's the use case we're really going to see today with this top 5 insurance company. But you can also handle claims processing or quote generation that really allow you to have very dynamic documents generated just from input from a user, maybe even a client-facing questionnaire that gathers information to generate a specific quote. Policy documentation, so whether it be life insurance or auto or home, whatever it may be, you're generating these policy documents, and policy documents are typically very standardized, and HotDocs can allow for you to take those standardized documents and create those templates to feed data and generate proper output documentation every time, and assessor feedback as well. So we're going to see today HotDocs used in the browser. So HotDocs can be used in the browser on the go. So you can imagine an assessor with an iPad on the go being able to gather information through a HotDocs interview and then that going back to some documentation. So there's quite a few uses where HotDocs really can be applicable across the industry of insurance. All right, so now let's talk about this top 5 insurance provider. So first, a little bit of background about them. This is an auto, property, and casualty insurer with nearly $70 billion in revenue a year. So it's top 5 insurance in the U.S. They handle over 80 million policies in the U.S. and Canada, and they have well over 65,000 employees. So this is a great insurance use case here in the U.S. Now, what the problem was when they came to HotDocs and came to us initially, they had some document assembly solution that they already created, something they'd been using for some time, but it was all custom built and managed internally. So the people who came to us actually were the ones who helped create this custom built Visual Basic document assembly solution. And it was sufficient. It gave them some gains for a period of time, but there were some real struggles with that. It was very difficult to maintain. And so when any kind of change needed to be made, it meant they had to change source code and deploy that source code and test it. So if there were changes, it really was difficult for them to maintain. And so that was one of their primary concerns with this. But then it also was limiting as well. So they couldn't build quite as much logic into their content, and it also made it more difficult for them to standardize. And documentation was changing over time. As you can imagine, business rules and laws change over time. So as those documents needed to be changed, that difficulty with the maintenance of the system became more and more difficult. And it was also very inefficient at handling high volume document production. So it wasn't server or browser based, so users weren't able to work in their browser kind of on the go. It didn't handle high volume very well. So they were really looking for something that would help them solve these specific problems. And so they came to HotDocs and they learned about what HotDocs could do for them, and we helped them with this specific deployment. And so as they looked at what HotDocs could provide for them, we worked together to create a solution for them. And the solution allowed them to create hundreds of fully automated HotDocs templates. And just an example of some of the templates that they create are legal letters, plaintiff and opposing counsel claims, litigation documents, deposition notices, things like that. They took their case management system, legal files, and were able to integrate that with HotDocs. I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment. And then they were able to take these templates and deploy them nationwide to each regional office. So let's look a little bit at what that looks like for them. So they have this case management system, legal files. Legal files is their main source for case data. So before documents are ever generated, there's typically someone going in and entering case information in this case management system about who the plaintiff is, the court, the plaintiff and the defendant, who the attorney is representing them. And so all of that data, their primary data source for almost any documentation they're going to create is in that legal files data. So what they needed to do is have a process for getting that data into HotDocs. Now they're going to deploy across various regional offices, so they needed a way to do that efficiently. So we helped them come up with a process to pull data out of legal files and push it into a specific set of components and created a master component file in their central office. So they maintain and manage this master set of HotDocs components for template use that will map to legal files data. So what that allowed them to do is they deployed across various regional groups. Each of those regional groups had their own template authors, people who were going to create HotDocs templates for use with HotDocs. So they provided this master component file to each of those regional areas, and they're able to use that as they create their HotDocs templates. And so what that means is they use the components that are provided to them, then case data is going to come through from legal files into their templates when they're used to generate documents. And so each of these regional groups have their own template authors that are able to take standardized components that link to legal files and use them in their templates as they create them. So it gave them the flexibility of creating their templates for their regional needs. So their courts and their various areas where they may have different rules or laws that they need to abide by, but then they can still benefit from that data coming from the legal files system. And so what this meant to the end user experience is it made it very easy for the end user when they're in the HotDocs application to be able to generate documents. They select a template in a case, and so they're selecting a specific case right out of their case management system. Then they're going to go into that HotDocs interview, but it's going to be pre-filled with case data. So it eliminates risk of them typing something incorrectly or not matching what's in their case management system. So the case management system then becomes the source for that particular data. So they go through that HotDocs interview, but pre-filled with case data, and then they're able to generate their output documents. And so it makes it very easy from an end user perspective. So let's take a moment now and look at that. So we're going to demonstrate what that is. I'm going to bring to the front my browser. So this is an application called Template Portal for use with our product called HotDocs Server. And this is what was implemented across their regional offices. And so what it allows for is for each of their offices to be able to access this in their browser and see the templates that are available to them. So each regional office is secured. So each group of users is assigned into user groups, and they publish their templates up to the application. And in that application, those templates are assigned to their region so that when they see this list of templates, they see only templates that apply to the specific region that they're a member of. So they're able to have some control over this and security. So they see this list of templates in their browser, and they're able to select a document that they want to create. So I'm going to pause for one more moment and just give background here. The benefit of this in the browser is that they can use it on any device, any browser. So they don't have to have Internet Explorer. They don't have to have a Windows machine. They can even do it on an iPad or anywhere where they have access to this site and they have a browser. So it really allows for flexibility. Also, they don't have to have any kind of software installed on their machine from HotDocs. They're just using their browser in a very familiar and comfortable environment. So let's say I'm an attorney at a specific regional office, and I'm going to create a deposition client letter. So I'm going to start with a single document here as an example. So I'm going to create a deposition client letter, so I can simply come in and select that template. I'm getting multiple examples here. So I can select that template. The next thing it comes to is a case selection screen. So this is actually integrated to their case management system to allow them to easily search for client or cases within legal files. So they see different sites. So my user actually happens to be a member of 4 different regional sites in this example. Now keep in mind I'm working with sample data here. So I've got a limited number of locations and cases here, but you'll see real case data coming from a back-end database right into my interview process. So I'm going to stick to Atlanta because I'm in the Atlanta area. And I can search with a specific file name or number. So let's say I want to do Smith, and I can search, and it will query that legal files data store to pull in various cases. And I can see file numbers and file names, and I can select a specific case. Upon selecting that case, what actually happens is it pulls the data right out of legal files and pulls it right into my HotDocs interview. So when I select that case, it takes me into the interview process for this deposition client letter, but with all of my case information coming from legal files. So you can see I'm starting an interview, but I'm not starting from scratch. I'm starting with almost everything completed for me, really. So this is the HotDocs interview process. So let me pause for a second and talk about the HotDocs interview process before I talk more about that data coming in. This interview process, like we mentioned earlier in the slideshow, comes directly from the template content. So there's a template author who created this deposition client letter, and they controlled what questions were going to get asked and how they're grouped together. And they can even build logic into that. So if there's specific triggers, like if I choose such and such date, I might include this additional language. They build all of that into the template. That template controls what questions get asked here. And as a user, now all I've got to do is answer these questions in this interview process. The structure of the interview is always the same for the user. They have an interview outline on the left-hand side, like we see here, with all of the pages of questions I need to complete, and then the actual questions from the right. And you can see very intuitive for your end users. It's a web form that users are used to. So as a user, I would just go through and answer the questions. If I were starting with no data coming in, I'd have to answer all of these questions. However, with this type of integration, the majority of my data is already here. So I can see in my Acme attorney information dialog here, I've got all of the information for the particular attorney already filled out, which happens to be me in this case. Defendant information as well. I have all of this information filled out. Now this case happens to only have one defendant listed. HotDocs does allow you to have lists of information, so I can actually have multiple defendants defined in this document. I can also fill out my case information. That's all pulled from the legal files data as well. And then in this case, the deposition information, maybe in a real case, maybe that's in legal files, but in my example case, that's not. So I'm actually having to fill that out as the user. So I can navigate through each of the questions and answer the questions that I need to answer. HotDocs gives me some great hints as well. So in this integration, this insurance provider decided to allow that case data to actually be able to be viewed and possibly edited, because every once in a while their main store had something incorrect and they wanted to be able to maybe change it right here in the interview process. So they're showing all of that data. We could alternately make it read-only or not even show the data that comes automatically from the database. But if I need to get to the next unanswered question, I can use in the outline here that this white icon means there's questions there I need to answer. I even have navigation toolbar buttons down below that will let me skip easily right to the next page where there's unanswered questions. And then I can go through and answer that. Now as I complete the interview as well, I have an option at any time to see a preview of my output document or a summary of the answers as I've provided them. So I've got a document preview that will show me a browser-based rendering of this document. I can even see here there's some questions I haven't answered yet. So HotDocs will warn me about those unanswered questions by putting in the field name and asterisk, so it makes it very apparent that I've missed something. I can see a summary of all the questions and the answers I've provided, even print them off. So I'll go ahead and fill out, this is a video for deposition, we'll say yes, and we'll make up a name here, Jane Doe, and we'll say for our preparation meeting, we're going to meet today at 3 o'clock. They've combined this into one field here to make it pretty free form, but here you can see I can have a date input as well. So I have 10 a.m. for the actual deposition, and it's tomorrow. And we'll say it's at the Acme office. All right, so after I complete the interview, I'm just going to hit finish. So once I've answered all my questions, I hit finish, and it will take me to a save and download screen. So it gives me an option to return back to the interview if I'd like, but I can just download my output document now. So if I hit download, I get a nice download. This is a standard browser download, and I can open up that completed document. And there's my completed deposition notice or letter. And I simply can print it, save it, whatever I need to do from here. So this is a standard output Word document, and I can go from here and send it off to my client, whatever I need to do. Now that was pretty quick and easy. In fact, I took quite a while to explain. You can imagine how quickly I only had to fill out really 6 fields to get that deposition client letter, only the deposition information, because the rest came from from case data in the case management system. Now let's say we take it another step. Often you're going to have the data that you need coming in and just need to answer some questions, but you may need to generate multiple documents. So maybe for a deposition, I need to generate a client letter and a deposition notice, or for I need a compel order, a compel motion, and a clerk letter. I can get all of those at one time from a single interview process. So template authors can build an interview that will generate multiple output documents. So we'll just do a deposition package here. If I select that, we can do our case search again. So let's just search today. This time we'll choose, we'll do Heather Rigmer. All right, and you can see again, my case information came in, my plaintiff and defendant information came in, as well as my attorney information. So we have a different attorney this time, different case. And then I've just got to fill out that deposition information again. So we'll make this up again, and we'll say this time it's David Jones, and we'll meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. and the deposition will be at 3 p.m. on, let's say, Monday. Now, date as well, I can type it in, I can also select it. So if I wanted to select it, as maybe the 5th, I can select that as well. I fill that information out. Also, you may have noticed there's a little progress bar down here below. So as I answer questions, I can see that overall progress pop up. When I'm done with that interview, I just hit finish. And then from that, I get 2 documents generated. And I can download each of those individually, or maybe even download an archive file that's got all of them there. So there's my client letter and my notice. Maybe I attach those to an email and send them off to a client. So from a single interview, I can generate 1 or more output documents. And often you may be generating, these packages are very widely used by HotDocs clients and at this insurance provider, so that they can go through a single interview process and generate all the documentation they need to send off for a single deposition or certain action in their case that they're working on. All right, so let's go back to our slide deck for a moment and talk about the results of this implementation. So this top 5 insurance provider, what they were able to do now is have 1,500 staff across the United States have access to HotDocs, and have well over 13,000 templates that they've built in each of those offices. They've got their own templates to help with litigation and case documentation, and they're generating well over 20,000 documents every month through HotDocs, and probably often more than that. Those are the latest numbers we had. So they're saving in their return on investment calculations that they figured out. They're saving, well over 5,000 work hours saved each month. And we're talking in legal offices for legal documentation. So literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a month that they're saving by utilizing HotDocs. And it's made it very easy for them to maintain their template content. So rather than this Visual Basic application that they had to change source code, they've now got these empowered template authors in each regional office that are able to manage their documentation the way that they want. But then it mitigates errors and risk. They build that logic in each of those regional offices into those templates. They're eliminating the risk of having the wrong data by integrating it into their case management system, so the right case data comes into the documents. And so they've got this very efficient process for creating documents that's saving them a lot of time and a lot of money. All right. That includes the overview we wanted to give you today of this example of a top 5 insurance provider utilizing HotDocs within their business, and the way that it's able to save them a lot of time and a lot of money. So I greatly appreciate your time today, and we're going to open it up now for questions.
Okay, thank you, Mark. That was great. So if you do have any questions, just type those into the question panel. You should see that in your GoToWebinar screen over on the right-hand side. So go ahead and just type those in, send those over. Looks like we've got a couple that have come through. So let me pull those up here. Okay, so first question. So how does, let's see, does HotDocs integrate with other case management systems or databases in addition to legal files?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So HotDocs can integrate with any backend database, really. So any application that, and all case management systems use a backend database. So if there's an Oracle or a SQL system running behind that case management system, HotDocs can connect to that to pull data out to allow you to be efficient. We realize that HotDocs is great to be able to show that dynamic interview, but that quite often that data already exists somewhere else. So we can enable you to have this external system gather the data and then feed that into HotDocs to have the efficiency that's needed and make sure that you don't rekey data that you already have.
Okay, good. Okay, let's see, here's another one. How difficult is it to set up an integration with other third-party technologies?
That's an interesting question. It really depends a little bit on the third-party technology if they're accessible. But if they are accessible, it is very easy. In HotDocs, we have a very fully functioning set of APIs that are available to allow for these types of integrations. And we're doing more work all of the time to make it even more easy off the shelf to perform integration with third parties. So we have some exciting things coming out this year to further allow those integrations, but we've always been able to integrate to almost any data source or third-party application as long as they make their application available.
Okay. Okay, another one here. How long does it take to get up and running with HotDocs? You know, because in your example, you talked about, you know, some of the issues they faced prior to coming on board with HotDocs, and now they're up to 20,000 documents a month. So how long would a typical setup take?
Excellent. So obviously implementation will vary based on the circumstances, but there are some key things to think about when you're implementing the solution that may have occurred to you as you watched. Document assembly means that you've got to create the template content. So there is time that's needed to be able to create the template content. So implementation of the actual solution, standing up the browser-based environment, all of that is a very rapid process. Setting up your template content depends a little bit on the resources that you have allocated to do that work and the amount of content that you have. However, that can also be done very quickly and can be done kind of as you go. And then we have great services to be able to help with that. So like Marvin mentioned at the beginning of the call, my team, we provide services to help train you, to help create that template content. So if you want us to create it for you, we can do that as well. And so that would help you get a head start on your implementation process. So implementation can vary. This was a very large organization, and their initial implementation, I think, did run about 3 to 6 months overall to get up and running, but they had quite a process for training various authors across multiple regions, and then those authors having time to create their template content and then start using it within the environment.
Okay. Okay, another question here. Okay, it has to do with Excel. So how does someone build a template to pull in data from Excel? And is that possible?
So it is possible to pull data from Excel in a HotDocs template. I would typically recommend that that data get moved into a database. So there are some limitations with Excel being a data store just by Microsoft itself. It's not really a database, a data storage utility, and so there's limitations to how you can connect to it. But HotDocs can connect to Excel and pull data out of a specific worksheet that's in a table format, and that can be done using an ODBC data source or an ADO connection to that specific Excel spreadsheet. But there are some limitations with how connections are made by Microsoft themselves, not by HotDocs necessarily.
Okay. Another one here is there a HotDocs expert available to help with setting up a template, like answer questions and troubleshoot? Like, do we have any services available for that?
Absolutely. Great question. I'll say it again. We're available and standing by. We have great resources. My team has people who have been doing this for 15 to 20 years. just, world experts at HotDocs template creation, and we're standing by and willing and able to help. So the numbers we have on the screen here, if you call those numbers or email, we have a sales rep standing by that'll be able to get you in touch with our teams, and we can help provide services that you need for template authoring.
Okay. Another one here. Can staff, like say out in the field, when they're not in the office, can they access the solution via mobile devices?
Absolutely. So a browser-based implementation like we showed today, whether it's Template Portal or other off-the-shelf web applications that can be used with HotDocs, as long as that interview is being hosted in the browser, if that site is accessible from that mobile device, then they can use it from that mobile device. So I have used the HotDocs interview from my iPhone, from my iPad, as well as from an Android device, and it works. A phone's not the most convenient way to fill out an interview, but it's doable for sure, and the HotDocs technology allows it.
Okay. Another one here. So once you produce your documents from HotDocs, can they be automatically stored in a document management system, something like OpenText or Content Server, which was previously called LiveLink?
Absolutely. So that would take a little bit of integration. So there would be a third-party integration to accomplish that. But we have done that with OpenText in the past, iManage, and other document management systems, especially for a case like the latter that I showed, where maybe you're generating a package of documents, to have a way to auto-profile all of those documents at once into your document management system at the end of a process can be very, very advantageous. So it's definitely possible.
Okay. And then another question, is it possible to run HotDocs without any integrations? So like without integrating with other third-party technologies or web-based applications, can it run like in an offline environment?
Yes. So HotDocs, we have 3 different environments to which we can deploy. We can run a local install. So there's a product called HotDocs User that can install on a user's machine and run just on a Windows machine without having to have any internet connection or anything. We have HotDocs Server, which is what we showed today, which is a browser-based solution but hosted within an organization. So you would install, if your Acme Insurance servers would have this application, and you would access that site via your browser. And then we have a cloud offering. And in all 3 of those offerings, a cloud offering is something we host, but you also use it in your browser. All 3 of those offerings are available without integration into other products. So just simply create your HotDocs templates and use them to fill out the interview and generate a document. So no data would come in beforehand, but you would be able to save answers and reuse those answers in the interview with various documents, and use HotDocs solely for document generation without integration to another product.
Yeah, it looks like that was the last question here. So, Mark, any last comments you want to make?
I would just thank everyone for your time today. We hope that this was beneficial to you to give a picture of how a very large insurance company was able to utilize HotDocs and gain benefit from the document assembly solution within their business. And hopefully you were able to see how you might be able to apply that within your business as well. And if you do have questions or need assistance, please reach out to us at these numbers that are on the screen. We look forward to speaking with you.